Hello and welcome to a demo of this water balance app. I just wanted to point out a couple things before we start. This is free. You can access it at this link or you could search for it at Quasi HydroShare. Also, it's important to note that this should work in any browser or on a smartphone. So if you have students using this, you could generate a QR code and it'll work fine on a smartphone as well as in an app or on a browser. So the first thing is a quick tour. I'm going to start with the tabs. So we have our output plots for the model. You can see we have precipitation, temperature, outputs from soil, storage, and inputs to soil. Then if you click the output data tab, this is all the data that the model generates. And you can put a different name for what you want to call this and download the data as a file. So if you have more advanced classes that might want to make their own plots or look at things that aren't in the output, you can do that here. If you go to the map shows all the sites that are available that you can run the water balance for. So if you zoom in to any of these sites and click them, it will populate over here and run the water balance for that site. So you can see there are a lot of options. If you click view and input data, this is the data that's driving the model, aside from also the water capacity over here. And so you can see what the monthly precip and temp look like. And you can also change those values for doing some little experiments by double clicking on any of the values and then typing in a different value. The model diagram just shows a simple diagram of what's happening in the model. And the model description tab has directions for using the app, but also a much more detailed description of the model that the app is running. So if we go back to the output plots, I can show a couple more things. You can see that this is updated to the site that I clicked on. You can also choose different sites by just scrolling within the menu, or you can type in, if you start to type a name, it'll populate and then you can click on it. So this is the one that was up originally. Once you have the site that you want, if you're looking at one time period here, which is data set 1, you can adjust the soil water capacity of the site by dragging this slider one way or another. You can adjust the latitude. This influences the PET calculation, so it just basically takes the site and moves it north or south. You can increase uniformly the monthly temperature or the monthly precip. So if you want to look at what the water balance might look like if that site warms by 1 degree or 2 degrees C, this will add 1 or 2 degrees C to every monthly measurement. And then the same with precipitation. So if I drag it to 11, it's going to add 11 millimeters to the precipitation data. So this is if you're using one data set. You can show 2 data sets at the same time, and this can be used in a couple different ways. One is, we should note, you can choose 2 different periods of NOAA climate normals. So right now we're looking at 91 to 2020, but we could also do 81 to 2010. So you can look at them individually, or if you go down to data set 2 and choose the other one, it'll show both the climate normals on top of each other. And you'll see the second one gets a dashed line and the first one keeps a solid line. So that can be used to look at how the climate is changing at individual sites. The other thing you can use the 2 data sets for is if you choose the same one for both. So now both data set 1 and 2 are the same, and you can see everything looks the same here. Well, not the same because I move stuff around. But if we change things in data set 1, that will change only the model run for data set 1. So what this allows us to do is compare the changed data set 1 to the original NOAA data. So we can see how the changes that we made to the model inputs by changing these sliders affect the overall water balance from the original one. So that's that. The other thing that I wanted to show that allows you to change some things and run some sort of virtual experiments is if we go to view input data, we can simulate, let's say, a flood by clicking on a specific month and then changing the 1 precipitation value. And if you go, you can see that that's reflected here and how that changes the water balance in that month. Additionally, you can do the same thing for temperature. So if you wanted to simulate a heat wave, something like that, you could put much higher temperatures in for a couple months and see how that affects everything. So that was just a brief tour of several of the different ways that you can use this app, and hopefully you found it useful. Thanks.